On June 16, 2014, a father from Virginia drove into one of the most desolate and dangerous landscapes on Earth. He wasn't a soldier, a diplomat, or an explorer. He was a farmer who had traveled 7,000 miles to keep a promise to his 6-year-old daughter. She wanted to be a real princess, so he found the only place left on the map where he could make that happen. He called it the Kingdom of North Sudan. The internet called it insane, but the map calls it Bir Tawil. It is a place with no permanent population, no laws, and no government. It is the only habitable place on the planet that is legally claimed by no country on Earth. It is a true Terra Nullius, nobody's land. This isn't just a story about a dad and a flag. It is a story about a glitch in the matrix of international law created by a 100-year-old argument between two nations. Over the 6 minutes, we will unravel the history of the world's strangest border dispute, meet the eccentrics who have tried to claim this land, and ask, in the 21st century, is it actually possible to start your own country, or is Bir Tawil just a mirage? Before we understand the politics, we must understand the place. Bir Tawil is roughly 2,000 square kilometers, about the size of a major U.S. county or the city limits of London. But unlike London, there is no infrastructure here. No paved roads, no power grid, no permanent settlements. Summer temperatures routinely exceed 45 degrees Celsius. It is rock, sand, and silence. However, nobody lives here is a dangerous simplification. For centuries, the Ababda people have crossed this land, knowing every wadi and acacia tree. To them, this isn't a political glitch, it's a grazing route. Yet, the governments in Cairo and Khartoum act as if this land doesn't exist. Why would two massive nations, both hungry for resources, look at a piece of land the size of a city and say, "No thanks, you take it"? To find the answer, we go back to 1899. The British Empire controlled the region, and, as usual, they loved straight lines. In the Anglo-Egyptian Condominium Agreement, Britain defined the border between Egypt and Sudan as the 22nd parallel north. Simple, mathematical. Under this line, the valuable coastal Halib Triangle belonged to Egypt, and everything south belonged to Sudan. But reality doesn't follow straight lines. The local tribes grazed their cattle across that border constantly. So, in 1902, the British drew a new administrative map to make tax collection easier. They dipped the border south, they gave the valuable Halib Triangle to Sudan to manage, and they gave the barren inland desert of Bir Tawil to Egypt to manage. Here is the trap. When the countries became independent, they had to choose a map. Sudan chose the 1902 line because it gave them the valuable coast. Egypt chose the 1899 line because that gave them the valuable coast. To claim the prize, they both had to reject the consolation prize. If either country claims Bir Tawil today, they legally admit the other map is wrong, and they lose the coast. So, Bir Tawil remains unclaimed, purely out of spite. So, if no one claims it, is it free real estate? International law isn't that simple. To be a state, the Montevideo Convention says you need a permanent population, a government, and the capacity to enter relations with other countries. Bir Tawil has the land, and absolutely nothing else. You cannot simply walk onto a patch of dirt and declare yourself king. Furthermore, while the land is legally Terra Nullius, or nobody's land, the access to it is not. You cannot fly there. There is no airport. You must drive through Egypt or Sudan. Both nations possess capable militaries that control these borders. The land might be free on paper, but in the real world, it sits in the shadow of two powerful states that decide who gets in and who stays out. This brings us back to Jeremiah Heaton. After his daughter asked to be a princess, he didn't just buy a costume, he bought a plane ticket. He obtained permits for a tourist trip, hired guides, and drove 14 hours into the restricted desert. It was a journey where a broken axle or a lost water jug could mean death. But on June 16, 2014, he arrived. He planted his flag and named it the Kingdom of North Sudan. When he returned, the story went viral. Disney even looked at movie rights, but the backlash was instant. Was this a heartwarming act of fatherly love, or was it a modern echo of colonialism? A Westerner planting a flag in Africa and claiming land because he felt like it. Heaton argued he wanted to use the land for science and agriculture, but without recognition, the kingdom remained a fantasy. Heaton wasn't the only one. He opened the floodgates. Soon, Russian radio enthusiasts visited to broadcast from a new country. An Indian entrepreneur claimed he owned the land by planting a seed. Online grifters started selling fake passports and titles of nobility for $50. It became a geopolitical meme. Find a map anomaly, design a flag in Photoshop, and wait for the press to bite. But here is where the internet hits a wall. Citizenship isn't a piece of paper you buy online. It is a social contract backed by force and recognition. If you try to use a Kingdom of Bir Tawil passport at JFK Airport, you aren't going to a diplomatic lounge. You are going to a holding cell. In Bir Tawil, the only sovereignty is the wind. Why are we so obsessed with this patch of sand? Because Bir Tawil represents a crack in the system. We are taught that every inch of earth belongs to someone, that the world is fully colored in. Bir Tawil proves that the borders we fight and die for are often just imaginary lines drawn by long-dead men in distant rooms. When two countries disagree, the lines vanish. Could it ever be a real country? Maybe. If Egypt and Sudan settle their dispute, one of them will likely absorb it. Or perhaps it remains a neutral zone, a science park, or a refuge. But for now, as long as the two neighbors refuse to agree, it remains the kingdom of nothing. The flag Jeremiah Heaton planted is likely gone now, bleached by the sun or buried by the sandstorms. The princess has grown up, the internet has moved on, but the land is still there, waiting, silent, a testament to the fact that humans can map the entire world and still get it wrong. If you found a country that no one else wanted, what would you name it? Thanks for watching.